The auction of shadows, the market smelled of smoke and strange spices. The air was thick with noise and shouting, and the lights flickered over rows of alien stalls filled with rare goods. Glowing crystals and strange creatures in the center. Of the chaos, a young alien woman sat in chains, her green eyes wide with fear. Her hands trembling as she looked around at the crowd of bidding aliens. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were torn. But there was a strange dignity in the way she held herself, even in chains. The auctioneer. A tall alien with 4 arms raised his voice above the noise. Next lot. The rarest personal slave in the sector. He shouted, and the crowd stirred with excitement and greed. Some aliens leaned forward, bidding high amounts of glowing coins, while others whispered to each other, wondering about the girl's story. In the corner, a human stood quietly, watching. His coat dusty and worn, he had traveled many light years to this market, seeking nothing for himself, only to see injustice. His eyes met the girl's, and for a moment, he saw fear, anger, and sadness all mixed in her gaze. He clenched his fists, counting the coins in his pocket. Knowing it was not enough, the auctioneer continued. "Do I hear 10,000 credits? 10,000. Going once, going twice." The tension rose, and the girl's lips moved in a silent prayer. The crowd laughed, thinking the human could not compete. He reached into his pocket and held up his last coin, a small, shining piece, and placed it carefully on the table. Silence fell for a moment. The alien bidders staring in disbelief. The auctioneer tapped his claws on the table and said slowly, "Sold." To the human, the chains fell away with a soft clink, and the girl froze, staring at him in disbelief. You bought me?" she whispered, her voice shaking. He nodded. "Yes, I bought you. You are free now." But freedom felt strange to her. She had been treated as property for so long that trust was almost impossible. Yet something in the human's eyes made her feel a tiny spark of hope. The crowd began to murmur and step back. Some angry, some impressed. The human extended his hand to her, simple, kind, and honest. "Come with me. You are safe," he said, and she hesitated, fear still in her heart. The auctioneer smirked. "Ha, a human foolish enough to buy a slave. Let us see what happens." But the human ignored him. Focusing only on the girl, he guided her slowly through the crowded market. Avoiding the glaring eyes and sharp claws of the other aliens, every step was tense, every turn dangerous. The girl's heart pounded, wondering if this was a trap, or if freedom could truly exist in a place like this. Finally, they reached a narrow alley. Shadows stretching around them, the human whispered, "We need to move fast. Stay close," and she did, still uncertain, still scared. Yet clinging to the hope he offered, suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the market. A warning that someone had noticed their escape. Alien guards shouted, their weapons glowing red. And the girl grabbed the human's arm tightly. "They are coming for me," she cried. The human held her hand firmly, his voice calm. "Then we run." Together, and so, they disappeared into the dark alley. Chased by danger, but driven by hope, the first step of freedom had begun. And neither knew what awaited them next. Yet one thing was certain, their story had just started. The last. Coin the human led the young alien girl through the twisting alleys of the market. His heart beating fast, yet his face calm. The shadows moved like living things around them, and strange noises echoed from the corners. The girl's small hands gripped his arm tightly, still unsure if she could trust him. "Why? Why would you do this for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He glanced at her, his eyes steady and kind. "Because no one deserves to be sold like that." "No one," he said, and his words felt heavy, full of truth. The coin in his pocket was his last, a single piece that could have fed him for weeks, yet he had spent it all to buy her freedom. Every step forward was tense, the fear of pursuit pressing on them. The girl's eyes darted to every shadow, expecting guards, or worse, "We need to move quickly." He whispered, "The auctioneer will send people after us." The crowd behind them had already started murmuring, realizing that a human had dared to do what none had tried. The young alien girl began to feel something she had not felt in years: hope, fragile and trembling. Her mind remembered the long nights in chains, the harsh words, the cruel laughter, yet now she walked beside someone who seemed different, someone who believed in her worth. The human led her through a side street filled with abandoned stalls, broken signs, and flickering lights. He paused for a moment, counting his steps, ensuring no one was following too closely. The girl looked at him, her green eyes shining in the dim light. "I don't even know your name," she said, and he smiled faintly. "Names can wait. Right now, you are safe, and that is what matters." The air was tense, every distant footstep making her flinch. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed, and both froze. An alien guard rounded the corner, its eyes glowing red. "Stop," it shouted. In a harsh alien tone, its weapon raised, ready to fire. The human did not panic. He grabbed a broken pipe from the ground, swinging it to block the weapon. Sparks flew, metal hitting metal, and the girl ducked behind him. "Go!" he shouted, and she ran, her legs trembling, heart pounding. The girl felt the first real taste of freedom, yet danger was never far. They turned another corner and saw a narrow staircase leading down into the darkness. "Quickly," he urged, and they descended. The stairs were old and cracked, every step threatening to give way. Dust and debris fell around them, and the girl stumbled, but the human caught her, steady and strong. "I've got you," he said simply, and in that moment, she believed him. The last coin he had spent was more than money. It was a promise, a symbol that someone believed in her. That belief gave her courage, and she took his hand, holding it tightly as they ran. They emerged into a quiet alley. Far from the chaos, the human bent slightly, catching his breath. And the girl looked at him with awe. "You risked everything for me," she whispered, and he nodded. "Because you are worth it, for the first time," she smiled, a small, uncertain smile, yet full of hope. But the danger was not gone. Shadows of the market still lingered. Distant footsteps and alien voices reminded them that freedom had a price. The human looked ahead, scanning the streets, planning their next move. He knew that survival would not be easy. But he also knew that together they could face whatever came. The girl followed him silently, trust slowly building. The last coin had bought her freedom, but it had also bought the beginning of something much greater: friendship, courage, and the chance to fight for a new life. And as the first distant stars appeared above the alien city, both knew that this was only the start of their journey. The escape from the market. The human and the young alien girl ran through the narrow alleys of the market, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. The noise of the crowded streets faded behind them, replaced by the distant shouts of guards and the hum of alien vehicles. The girl's small hands clutched his arm tightly, her heart racing. "Are they following us?" she asked, her voice trembling. He shook his head quickly. "Maybe, but we can't stop." "Keep moving," he urged, his eyes scanning every shadow. Every corner they turned was filled with danger: metal claws, glowing eyes, and strange alien shapes appeared in the darkness. The girl stumbled over a broken crate, nearly falling, but the human caught her just in time. "Steady," he whispered. And she nodded, trying to trust him completely. Behind them, an alarm bell rang, loud and sharp, signaling that the auctioneer's patrols had spotted them. Red lights flashed through the alleys, painting the walls in fearsome colors. The girl's chest heaved as she ran, but she began to feel a strange exhilaration. freedom mixed with terror. They reached a crowded junction, and the human grabbed a stack of cloth from a nearby stall, tossing it over their heads to hide their movement. "Quick, through here," he whispered, pulling her into a narrow passage filled with smoke and strange smells. The walls were high, and the passage twisted unpredictably, forcing them to duck and jump over debris. Suddenly, a group of alien guards appeared at the other end, their weapons glowing ominously. The girl froze, but the human took her hand firmly. "Run!" he shouted, and they dashed forward, weaving between barrels and broken carts. Sparks flew as a guard's weapon struck metal, missing them by inches. The girl gasped, but the human kept her focused. "Look ahead, not behind. We survive by moving forward." They slipped into a side street, empty and quiet, the chaos of the market fading behind them. For a moment, it seemed they might be safe, but distant voices reminded them the danger had not ended. "We need to find a safe place," he said, scanning the alleyways carefully. The girl nodded. Exhaustion and fear mixing with a glimmer of hope, they reached a small, abandoned building at the edge of the district, its doors hanging loose on broken hinges. The human pushed the door open and gestured for her to enter. Inside. Quickly, the girl ducked inside, her breath coming in short gasps. The room was dark and dusty, but it felt like a refuge, a small space where they could finally pause. He closed the door carefully. Listening for footsteps outside, the girl sank to the floor, her knees shaking. I thought I would never get out," she whispered. Her voice trembled with relief and disbelief. He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You are safe now. For this moment, you are free." The girl's green eyes filled with tears. Not of sorrow, but of relief. The human smiled faintly, though his own chest was still racing. "We need a plan," he said, pulling out a small map from his coat. Pointing to hidden routes through the city, "We must leave the market and reach the outskirts. There, it will be safer." The girl nodded, listening intently, beginning to trust him more with every word. For the first time, she felt hope bloom inside her chest. A life beyond chains, fear, and pain seemed possible, yet she knew they were far from safe. Outside, shadows moved, whispering, searching, and waiting. But inside that small room, they could breathe for a moment, gather strength, and prepare. The human looked at her seriously. "You are not alone anymore. We face whatever comes, together." The girl nodded, holding on to that promise. And for the first time in years, she believed that someone truly cared. That someone was willing to risk everything for her. And as the distant market noises faded into the night, both knew that the true test of freedom was only beginning. Trust in the darkness. The small room smelled of dust and damp, the only light coming from a crack in the broken wall. The human set down his bag and looked at the young alien girl, her green eyes wide and cautious. She sat on the cold floor, hugging her knees, chains of the past still heavy in her mind. I don't know if I can trust anyone," she whispered, her voice small, trembling. He knelt beside her, keeping his tone soft and calm. "I understand," he said, "but right now you have to. There is no one else who can help you." The girl looked at him, suspicion clear in her gaze. "You don't even know me," she said, and he shook his head. "No, but I know what's right," he replied simply. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of food, handing it to her. "Eat. You need strength." She hesitated, but hunger won over doubt, and she took it. Nibbling slowly, the human watched her carefully, making sure she felt safe. Every sound outside the broken walls made her flinch. A distant footstep, a rustle of cloth, a faint metallic clang, each one a reminder of the danger still around them. He knew the aliens would not give up easily. They had powerful technology and ruthless intentions. "Why are they after you?" Shh, he asked gently, trying to start a conversation. She swallowed hard. Because I belonged to the queen. I was her personal slave, her voice barely audible. They don't let anyone leave. Her words made the human's jaw tighten, but he remained calm. Not anymore. You're free now, he said firmly, though both knew freedom would not be easy to protect. Silence fell between them for a moment, heavy with unspoken fears. Then the human said, "Tell me everything. I need to know if I can keep you safe." She hesitated, memories of chains and harsh words flashing in her mind. But slowly she began to speak, her voice shaky at first, describing the cruel life she had lived. The endless labor, the constant fear, each word made the room feel heavier. Yet the human listened without interruption, giving her his full attention. "You endured so much," he said quietly, "but you survived." That shows courage. For the first time, she felt someone saw her as a person. Not property, not a possession, but a being with feelings, hopes, and worth. The room felt warmer somehow. The darkness less frightening. "Do you really care?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. He looked at her straight in the eyes. "Yes, I will protect you. No one should hurt you again." She nodded slowly, trying to believe him. The shadows outside shifted, a reminder that danger was never far. Yet inside that small room, trust began to grow, fragile. Like a small flame in the dark, the human moved to the window, peering cautiously, scanning for patrols or watchers. "We can't stay here long," he said. "We need a plan to leave the city safely." She stood up beside him, watching him carefully, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope. "I will follow you," she said quietly. "If you say it is safe," he smiled faintly. "We go together. Always together." And in that moment, the young alien girl felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Fragile, but real. The human offered her his hand. Simple and steady, and she took it, gripping it tightly, their fingers intertwined. A silent promise that they would face the darkness together. Outside, the city hummed with alien activity. Guards and drones moving in patterns. Yet inside the small room, trust began to take root. Each small step, each word of kindness, was building a connection that neither could yet name. But both knew that trust was dangerous in a world like theirs. And yet, it was the only weapon. They had stronger than chains or lasers hope and faith in each other. Asterisk, asterisk. Secrets of the past. The human led the young alien girl out of the small room. Careful to stay in the shadows, the streets were quieter here, but danger was never far. Every corner could hide a patrol. Every alley could hold spies. The girl's green eyes darted nervously, memories of chains and punishment still heavy in her mind. "You need to tell me everything," the human said softly. "Everything that happened before tonight." She hesitated, fear tightening her throat. I was sold when I was very young," she began, her voice trembling. "They said I was a gift for the queen. I was not allowed to speak unless spoken to, not allowed to eat what I wanted, not allowed to sleep properly, not allowed to dream." Her words came in bursts, the pain raw and fresh. The human listened silently, letting her pour out the past, letting her voice break the walls of fear she had built around herself. "I worked for the queen's servants, then the queen herself," she continued. "They called me personal slave. I was nothing. Only property." A shiver ran through her small frame, and the human instinctively placed his hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. "You were never nothing," he said quietly. "You are alive, and that is proof of your strength." She looked at him, eyes wide, trying to understand a world where someone cared for her worth. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I've been treated like a toy, and now I'm free. But I don't know how to live like this." He nodded, understanding her confusion. Freedom is strange at first, but It is yours. You can choose now, for yourself, not for anyone else. She walked a few steps ahead, silently, thinking about the strange feeling of choice, of not having someone control her eye. I don't know if I can trust people, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The human glanced at her, gentle and patient. Then trust me first. The rest will come later, she nodded slowly, gripping her hands together, trying to believe him. There is more, she said, her voice shaking. Something about the queen. About the auction. That no one must know. The human stopped walking and turned to her. Tell me. Maybe it will help us stay safe. She looked around nervously, then whispered, the queen. She wants me back. She sent her best hunters. The ones who never fail. His eyes narrowed, the weight of the danger pressing down. Then we must move fast. There is no time to waste. She shivered at the thought. But the human's calm presence steadied her, guiding her through narrow streets and shadowed corners. Every step was tense, every moment filled with the fear of being caught. But for the first time, she felt a small spark of hope because he was with her, protecting her, believing in her. And in that fragile hope, she found the courage to speak again. I never knew anyone would care for me, she said, her voice soft. Almost amazed, the human gave her a small smile. I care. That is enough to start. She looked at him, a strange mix of fear, gratitude, and trust filling her chest. The distant sound of the city reminded them that danger was never gone, that the queen's hunters could appear at any moment, but inside the alleyways, under the shadows, the human and the young alien girl walked together, sharing silent promises. The secrets of the past had been heavy, but now they were shared, and with each shared secret, trust and courage grew, and somewhere, deep inside, she realized that for the first time, she was not alone. And that thought gave her strength to face whatever would come next. The hunters arrived. The night was thick with shadows, the quiet streets suddenly alive with tension. The human and the young alien girl moved quickly, keeping to the narrow alleys. The map he carried showed secret routes, but every step felt dangerous. A sudden whistle cut through the air, sharp and cold. The girl froze, her green eyes wide with fear. What was that? She whispered, clutching his arm. He crouched low, peering around the corner. Hunters, he said softly, his voice tense. The queen sent them. They never fail. The words made her stomach twist, fear and adrenaline mixing into a heavy, not they. They will catch us. She stammered, her voice trembling. He shook his head. Not if we stay smart. Follow me exactly. They moved quickly, slipping into a hidden side passage lined with crates and old machinery. The shadows became their allies, masking their movement as the hunters' voices echoed closer. Heavy footsteps, metal claws scraping against stone, and a strange humming sound of alien tech filled the air. The girl's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. I can't run much longer, she gasped, her small legs shaking. He grabbed her hand firmly. Then don't. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. We move only when it's safe. They crouched behind a pile of broken crates, breathing slowly, listening as the hunters passed by. The hum of their weapons, strange and deadly, made her flinch with every sound. One hunter stopped nearby, its glowing eyes scanning the shadows. The girl held her breath, closing her eyes, hoping not to be seen. The human's presence was steady beside her, a silent anchor in the storm of fear. The hunter turned, scanning the alley, and after a tense moment, moved on, its footsteps fading. Relief washed over the girl, but it was short-lived. We can't stay here long, he whispered, tugging her to her feet. They ran again, weaving through alleys, jumping over debris, ducking under broken signs. Their path took them to an abandoned warehouse, dark and silent, perfect for hiding. Inside, he said, pushing the door open, and they slipped in. The room smelled of old metal and dust. The only light, a faint moonbeam from a broken window. She sank to the floor, panting. They almost caught us, she whispered, terror still in her voice. He knelt beside her. I know, but you are safe for now. And we have a plan. She looked up at him, her eyes full of uncertainty. How can you know we are safe? He smiled. Faintly, because we move carefully and we trust each other. She nodded slowly, trying to believe, even as fear still gripped her chest. I don't want to go back. Ever, she said softly, voice breaking. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You won't, I promise. We will stay ahead of them. Outside, the hunters paused, communicating in low, metallic voices. Plotting their next move, the girl shivered. Imagining the queen's fury, the power of her wrath, hunting them. They won't stop, she said quietly. Almost to herself, he looked at her with calm determination. Then we keep moving. Faster, smarter. Together, she clutched his hand, gripping it tightly. A silent vow forming between them. Their path was dangerous. The city a maze of death traps. But together, they could face it. They moved again into the darkness, each shadow a possible threat, each step a test of courage. The queen's hunters were relentless, but so was their will to survive. And in that small abandoned warehouse, the young alien girl felt something she hadn't felt before. She was not alone, and that small truth gave her the strength to keep running, to keep hiding, to keep trusting. Asterisk. The secret passage, the abandoned warehouse, echoed with silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city. The human and the young alien girl pressed themselves against the cold metal walls. Catching their breath, the hunter's footsteps had faded for now, but danger was still near. There has to be a way out, he whispered, scanning the dim room. His eyes fell on a rusted ladder leading to a small hatch in the ceiling. This could be it, he said, motioning to the girl. She looked up, fear and hesitation in her eyes. It's too high, she whispered. What if they see us? He smiled faintly. Then we climb, carefully, together. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly, her small fingers trembling against his. Step by step, they climbed the ladder, the metal cold and slippery under their hands, every creak made. Her heart jump, every shadow outside the hatch seemed to hide eyes. Watching them, waiting, the human peeked through the hatch before pushing it open. A narrow, dark tunnel stretched ahead, hidden from the city streets. This is our secret passage, he whispered. It will take us out of the city safely. She hesitated, looking back at the warehouse, memories of chains and fear flooding her mind. Are you sure it's safe? She asked, voice trembling. He nodded firmly. I can't promise nothing will happen, but it's our best chance. Together, they slipped into the tunnel, the darkness swallowing them. The air was damp, filled with the smell of earth and old metal. She shivered, feeling the weight of fear and hope at the same time. How long is this tunnel? She asked, her voice barely audible. Not far, he replied, guiding her along the narrow path. But we have to stay quiet. The walls pressed close, the tunnel twisting and turning like a snake. Every step forward made her pulse race. The human held her hand firmly, offering silent strength. A faint light appeared ahead, a small glow through a crack in the tunnel wall. Almost there, he whispered. Stay close. She nodded, gripping his hand even tighter. The sound of rushing air told them the exit was near. But then, a low metallic growl echoed through the tunnel, freezing them in place. Hunters. They had discovered the tunnel, or maybe one had always been near, she gasped, pulling back slightly. Where? Trapped, she whispered, terror in her voice. The human shook his head, calm and steady. No, we're not trapped. Keep moving. He led her toward the glow, ducking under a low metal beam. Sidestepping a puddle of water, The growl grew louder, the sound of claws scraping against stone. Their hearts pounded in unison. Fear and determination mixing into adrenaline. Then, with one final push, they emerged from the tunnel into the open air. The city skyline stretched before them, distant lights twinkling like stars. But here, they were hidden, away from the hunter's sight. She fell to her knees, gasping. For breath, relief washing over her, we made it, she whispered, looking at him with wide, amazed eyes. He offered her a hand, and she took it, standing slowly, feeling the first taste of freedom without chains. Yes, he said softly, we made it. And now, we can plan the next step. The wind blew gently, carrying the sounds of the distant city. But for the first time, she felt safe. Not completely safe, but safe enough to breathe, to hope, to believe. And in that moment, under the moonlight, she realized something she had never known before. Someone could care for her, protect her, and fight for her. And that someone was standing right beside her, holding her hand, sharing her fear, sharing her hope. The secret passage had saved them, but it had also changed them, forging a bond stronger than chains, stronger than fear, strong enough to face whatever the Queen would send next. Asterisk, the hidden village, the human, and the young alien. Girl moved carefully through the darkness beyond the tunnel. Their feet brushed against soft moss, and the night air smelled of earth and wet leaves. The city lights were far behind, a distant memory of danger and fear. Do you think they will? Follow us here. The girl asked quietly, her green eyes full of worry. He shook his head. The hunters are clever, but they won't know this place exists. He paused, listening to the sounds of the forest. Birds asleep, wind rustling through the trees. We have to keep going until dawn, he whispered. Then we can rest safely. The girl nodded, tired but determined. The path led them to a narrow stream, its water shimmering under the faint moonlight. He helped her across the slippery stones. Careful not to make a sound. Almost there, he said softly. You are very brave. She blushed slightly. Looking down, I'm just scared, she admitted, her voice small. He smiled gently. Being brave does not mean not being scared. It means moving forward even when you are. She followed him in silence, thinking about the weight of his words for the first time. Someone had spoken to her as if she was more than a slave, as if she was important, as if her life mattered. Finally, the trees opened into a small clearing, hidden in the valley. Surrounded by high cliffs and thick forest, a village lay quietly. Abandoned long ago, the buildings old but sturdy. Smoke from a distant chimney suggested life somewhere nearby. This must be it, he said, his eyes scanning the village. Somewhere we can rest, regroup, and plan. She looked around in awe, amazed by the peacefulness after so many nights of fear. It feels safe, she whispered, sitting on a moss-covered stone. He knelt beside her, pulling a small bag from his back. Eat something. You need strength. She took the offered food, her hands trembling slightly. The warmth and taste of it reminded her of freedom. A small spark of happiness grew inside her, something she had never felt before. As she ate, she noticed carvings on the old wooden walls, symbols of protection and old magic. These markings, they mean the village is hidden, she said softly, pointing to the symbols. He nodded. Yes, that is why no one will find us here. Not even the hunters. The girl smiled faintly, hope creeping into her heart. For the first time, she felt that she could breathe without fear of being caught. Thank you, she said quietly, looking up at him for a breath. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to thank me. We are in this together. She felt a strange warmth, a sense of trust and belonging she had never known. The night passed slowly, but safely. The human kept watch while she slept, guarding her from any unseen danger. and in the quiet moments, she dreamed not of chains or punishment, but of freedom, of being more than a slave, of a life where she could choose, a life where someone cared for her, trusted her, and fought for her when dawn broke, the light spilling into the village. She woke to see him already standing, looking toward the horizon. "We have time," he said softly. "Rest a little more." "We plan next steps soon," she nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The hidden village was not just a place to hide, was a place to start, to heal, to think, and to grow stronger together. They had survived the hunters, escaped the queen's wrath, and now, in the safety of the hidden village, a bond deeper than fear or chains was forming, one that would guide them through the trials to come. The queen's shadow, the hidden village, lay quiet under the morning sun, birds chirping and the gentle breeze rustling the trees, but the human knew better than to trust the calm. He scanned the horizon with sharp eyes, always alert. "We are not safe yet," he whispered, his voice low. The alien girl stirred, yawning, rubbing her green eyes. "Why not?" "The hunters didn't follow us," she said softly, hope in her voice. But he shook his head. "The queen does not send hunters alone. She is always watching. Her shadow is everywhere." She looked at him, puzzled and frightened. "Her shadow? What do you mean?" He knelt beside her, pointing to the cliffs surrounding the village. "The queen has spies, scouts, creatures that can see from above, sense movement, and report back. We may be hidden from the city, but not from her." She swallowed hard, her stomach twisting with fear. The thought of the queen, her power, her wrath, sent shivers down her spine. "Then we can't stay," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not for long," he said, standing and extending his hand. "We need to move carefully, learn the land, plan our next step." She took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "I don't want to run again," she said softly. "I can't." He smiled faintly. "I know. But running smartly is sometimes the only way to survive." They spent the morning scouting the village, checking old pathways, hidden tunnels, and watch points. The human showed her how to move quietly, how to use the shadows as cover, how to listen for the faintest sound of approaching danger. "Remember," he whispered, "crouch behind a broken wall. Every sound could be a warning. Every movement could be seen." She nodded, her eyes wide, absorbing every word. Every lesson made her stronger, more alert, more determined as they moved through the village. A sudden movement caught their eyes. A shadow flicked across the cliff edge, too fast, too silent. "There," she whispered, pointing, her heart racing. The human's eyes narrowed. "A scout," he said calmly but tensely. "The queen is aware of our presence." The scout disappeared behind the cliff, almost blending into the rocks. But it was enough to warn them. He pulled her close. "We stay hidden until nightfall. Then we leave quietly. Do not speak unless necessary." She nodded, gripping his arm, fear mixed with trust. They crouched behind stones and overgrown walls, waiting, listening to every rustle, every bird call, every distant sound of wind. Hours passed slowly, tension building like a heavy cloud over them. Finally, the sun began to set, shadows lengthening across the village. He whispered, taking her hand. "We move." Together, they slipped through hidden paths, the cliffs. Shielding them, the scout was nowhere in sight. But the human knew better. The queen's shadow could appear any time. From any direction, suddenly, a faint cry echoed from the cliffs above. Chilling her to the bone, "It's a warning," he said, crouching low. "Someone knows we are here." The girl's hand trembled in his, but he held it firmly, giving silent reassurance. "Stay close. Trust me. We are not alone, but we are not lost, step by step." They moved through the growing darkness, shadows blending with shadows. Every heartbeat a drum of suspense. every step a test of courage. And though the queen's shadow followed, unseen, but ever-present, the bond between them grew stronger. Their trust, their courage, and their determination forming a shield against fear. The night would be long and the danger far from over, but together they faced the queen's wrath and shadow, ready to survive, ready to fight, and ready to keep moving toward freedom, freedom, or trap. Night had fallen over the hidden valley, shadows stretching long across the forest floor. The human and the young alien girl moved silently. Every step careful, every rustle of leaves made their hearts pound. The queen's shadow was still near, unseen but felt, a presence that made the air heavy. "Do you think we can reach the river?" The girl whispered, her voice trembling. "It's our last chance," he replied, scanning the darkness ahead. "If we cross it, we can lose them for good." She nodded, gripping his hand tightly, trusting him completely now. Fear mixed with hope in her chest, her small body pressed close against his. She could feel his steady heartbeat, giving her courage. The river was not far, but the path was dangerous. Thick roots and rocks made every step tricky. And the sound of water could carry their scent. "Quiet," he whispered. "We are almost there." A distant howl echoed through the trees, sending chills down their spines. The girl froze for a moment, terror flashing in her green eyes. He put a finger to his lips. "Move slowly." Step by step, they advanced, ducking behind trees and fallen logs. The moonlight reflected on the river ahead, a silver path through the darkness, but just as they reached the edge, a figure appeared, tall and dark, blocking their way. "The Queen's Scout," he whispered, his jaw tight. The girl gasped, but he held her close. "We can't fight it. We have to distract and run." He picked up a rock, throwing it to the far side of the river. The scout's head turned instantly. Giving them the opening they needed, hand in hand, they sprinted toward the water. Cold river water splashing over their feet, the current strong, but their determination stronger. The girl's fear and excitement mixed as she shouted with relief. "We're almost free." The human nodded, eyes fixed ahead, guiding her through the flowing water. Behind them, the scout barked, but it was too late. They reached the opposite bank, soaked and trembling, but alive. The forest opened into a wide plain, stars above shining. Like tiny beacons of hope, she fell to her knees, gasping for breath. The first real moment of relief in weeks. We made it," she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. He helped her up, brushing wet hair from her face. "Yes," he said softly, smiling, "we are free. For now." But freedom was not just distance from danger. It was trust, it was courage, it was hope. She looked up at him, gratitude and admiration shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling, "for everything." He shook his head, smiling gently. "You were never alone. We did this together." The wind blew softly across the plain, carrying away the fear and darkness of the past. The girl laughed quietly, a sound filled with relief and newfound joy. For the first time, she felt like more than a slave, more than someone who was just a possession. She was alive, she was free, and she had someone who cared for her, someone who would fight for her. The human looked at the stars, thinking about the journey ahead. The queen's shadow was still out there. But for now, they had a chance, a real chance. And as they walked together toward a distant village where safety and help awaited, the bond between them grew unbreakable. Forged by fear, courage, and hope, freedom was not just crossing the river. It was knowing they could face anything, as long as they were together, and for the first time in her life, she smiled without fear, knowing the future could be hers,